Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled Tales from the Manager #1, How a Jesus Statue Started a Very Iconic HOA Civil War. I have wanted to share stories here for a while of some of my experiences with managing HOAs. I spent 10 years being a community manager in the American South, and during that time managed dozens of neighborhoods. From condos to marinas and townhomes to master associations and their subs, I have managed it all. This particular story takes place in a master association named after the church that it was built around. Let's call it St. Bilbo's. It includes townhomes and single-family homes and was built in the early 2000s, and of course virtually every resident, it seemed, is retired and has nothing better to do. However, most are members of the church. The way St. Bilbo's board made decisions was to have meetings with the church elders in the center of the community, with the church having the same name, St. Bilbo's. One summer day I received a call from one of the elders at the church whom let me know that they had purchased a famous statue and that famous statue would now be located right outside of the church on the sidewalk. The statue was called Homeless Jesus and depicted an unseen figure under a blanket or tarp, presumably Christ, laying on a park bench. Link below for those wanting to see it. I googled this while on the phone with the elder and immediately knew what would be coming from the residents. Rather than make a big announcement, I sent an email to the board and left it at that. The HOA cannot govern the church. A few weeks later, I began getting calls from the retirees concerned that a homeless person had been sleeping on a bench outside of the church covered by a blanket and that he needed to be removed. Even the police were called several times to remove this homeless person. The calls would typically go like this. Old bird. There's a homeless person sleeping out here and the HOA needs to get them removed ASAP. Me? Ma'am, that is actually a statue called Homeless Jesus, and the church purchased it. Old bird. How dare they bring something so trashy into our community? This is going to attract more homeless people. Why would the church buy that? Me? Ma'am, I believe the purpose of the statue is to show that if Jesus came back today as a homeless person, no one would try to help him and would avoid/complain about him being there. Some even going so far as trying to forcibly remove him. Old bird. That is not art, and it is bringing down the value of my home. People driving through now think we have a bomb problem and it needs to be removed now. Me? I don't have that ability, ma'am, but I certainly don't want to be party to anyone trying to remove Jesus from a bench. Here's the number for you to call the church to get started. Old bird. I'm a member of the church and I will make sure it's removed. You can see where this is going, and I had this exact same call with well over 30 separate homeowners whom did not appreciate the irony. A movement quickly formed of disaffected homeowners petitioning the church for its removal. This led to a special meeting being held between the church, the board of directors and the community members. Who was to be the referee/arbiter? Of course, it was me personally. But right before that meeting, someone decided to spray paint Jesus and his blanket. This rubbed the elders the wrong way and set the stage for a full-on adult toddler meltdown for most parties involved. The meeting begins and the Remove Jesus side came out swinging. The leader of Remove Jesus was a man named Steve. Steve is about 60 years old, stands 5'4", 115 pounds and chain smokes Marlboro Reds. There is not 1 ounce of refinement in Steve, and his only attire is either old NASCAR shirts or the redneck classic of a howling wolf shirt with stains all over it. Steve and I had a long history prior to this meeting, consisting of him calling me every few months to accuse me of embezzling HOA money. He was the guy that when a neighbor had an issue, he would jump to their side and become a bulldog even when the issue did not affect him. Steve will be featured in other stories too. Me, let's call this meeting to order. The church elders have the floor. Steve, "No, they do not. They can speak after we do. This statue makes the community look terrible and will no doubt attract other homeless people." "Steve, please sit down and wait for your turn. We have gone over this before ad nauseum." Steve proceeds to ball up his fists and walk to the table I am at, pulling his gold crossed chain from his shirt, holding it out to me. "I'm a Christian and I believe in karma. And you, Mr. HOA manager, are a liar and karma is going to get you." "Me? Karma is Buddhism, Steve, not Christian." For possibly the first time in Steve's life, he had nothing to say, could not find the words. He began to back up before turning to the crowd and still looking for the words. Before he could mutter anything, the preacher detonated. "Preacher, I cannot believe the amount of people here that show up every Sunday, pretend to have compassion, and then organize something like this. We purchased the statue because we believed it would send a message that you should be kind to everyone, even the homeless, because they could be Christ. And that is what the Bible teaches, for us all to be humble and to assist others without judging. Apparently that irony is lost on all of you, or you flat out just come here every Sunday to be social, because I know you are not listening to my sermons if this is the response. All of you with a problem with the statue can stand up and leave now, because you are only a Christian on Sunday mornings, and there's no place for you in this church." Not a sound could be heard. I had to bite my cheeks to not smile or laugh. It was clear the preacher went off course from his planned speech. Slowly, the preacher began to backtrack, clarifying that he was angry at the response of supposed Christians and angry someone spray painted the statue. The remove side lost all courage, but rather than get up and leave or say something, now pretended it was okay and they had no part in it. "We are still Christians," leaving the full brunt of the movement on Steve, whom scurried out a back door when the preacher began his rant. With perfect timing, Steve then busts back in after all the action was over, pointing at me and yelling some sort of insult, but was immediately and unequivocally yelled at to stop talking and just leave, and that is what Steve did. And the movement completely died. Not an apology could be heard, but those very same HOA Christians went back to normal life, calling me about equally stupid things, but the typical retiree concerns such as kids playing and people walking on the grass. You know, the important stuff. The meeting made the local paper and the articles on it are relatively easy to find if you just look up the statue name. I am positive you will find it almost immediately. I will post other inspiring HOA stories in the future, same title. And thank you very much to user World-Renowned Guy for posting this awesome HOA stories, and really, I simply cannot wait for the next ones. And by the way, if you have watched until here and enjoy HOA stories in particular, then please don't forget to also post some star emojis in the comments to support the channel. Thank you so much in advance. And the next one is titled, "Today I screwed up by thinking I am all that to the neighbor ladies." This morning I was mowing the lawn. I was in shorts and a t-shirt and had my earbuds in. I live in an upscale modular home park where men are outnumbered by women 2 to 1. Most of us are middle-aged or older and try to mind our own business. The women are more flirty than usual, but that is fine. A few years ago, the senior lady across the street would make it a habit to watch me mow my lawn. Some days she brings me cookies or a hamburger or something to drink. This morning I was enjoying my music when 2 older women, probably mid to late 60s, walked by my place. They tried desperately to get my attention, but I was not in the mood to visit or be sociable. I'm known pretty well locally because I worked for our local paper and write restaurant reviews. On the second or third time I pushed my mower in the direction where they were in my line of sight, I could see them again, trying to get my attention. I really wanted to ignore them and didn't want to seem mean, but I stopped the mower and pulled out my earbuds and said to them, "How are you ladies? I cannot really stop to talk. I have a lot to do today." The one who had seemed most animated spoke up. "We are sorry to bother you, but we have grandchildren visiting us." Me, "Bring them over. I would like to meet them." Her, "It is not that. We just want you to zip up your shorts. We can see your underwear." But I gotta admit guys, the funniest thing about this post are the comments. One guy is saying, "As a German, everything about this from the setting to the interaction just baffles me." Then someone responded, "As an American, everything about this baffles me too." And then someone finally shed some light on the situation. It feels like a scene from Edward Scissorhands, to be honest. And the next one is titled, Always Document Everything. This story begins in the summer. The wife and I moved from my mother's basement to a fantastic apartment just down the road from my university. The building is mega soundproofed, the neighbors do piano lessons, lots of people with kids and dogs, and we cannot hear any of it, with the exception of one dog from across the hall. The neighbors across the hall are retired, perhaps their senior father lived with them, I'm not sure on that detail. But they were enjoying their retirement, going out all of the time for hours at a time, and whenever they left, their dog would bark the entire time. An 8 to 12 hour continuous barking session was not uncommon, typically 3 to 7 days a week. Now, a few details about myself. I'm a dog person, I love them, and I understand this little guy is probably just anxious without his owners. I'm a student as mentioned before, and I did not mind listening to the dog while school was out for summer, but come fall this problem needed to be dealt with. And lastly, I am incredibly patient and kind to a fault. I also look like a strange combination of Dave Grohl and Hank Hill, but that is more of a bonus fact. So after 2 weeks of this listening to this dog, I put a sticky note on their door that read something along the lines of, "Hey, just so you know, your dog barks constantly when you're not home." Of course nothing changes, so after another 2 weeks I put in a single formal complaint that goes something along the lines of, "Hey, last thing I want to do is cause trouble, but this dog has been barking for a month and it is really annoying. I hope we can all come to a peaceful solution." Over the next week we notice a drastic change. The dog no longer barks, it still whines loudly, which is still crazy annoying, but an improvement. Also the noise reduces to about 2 to 6 hours a day, maybe 3 days a week maximum. Turns out they got anxiety meds for the dog. Regardless, I am happy, the problem seems to be slowing and perhaps it won't be so loud come school. A month and a bit goes by and I am writing a timed online quiz for a class in my home, and this dog is barking like it used to when we first moved in. I cannot concentrate and it is driving me insane. I leave my quiz and leave another sticky note, this one along the lines of, "Not a complaint, just letting you know, your dog was crazy loud tonight." I am just about done with my quiz when there is a knock on my door. I answer the door and lo and behold, the lady from across the hall holding my note, looking pissed. She asks me if I wrote the note. Yes. Do I understand how frustrating that is? Well, I sure understand frustration, so yes. She is screaming at this point. I ask if she would like to have a calm conversation. And by the way guys, I love when you ask angry people to have a calm conversation, because some will just answer, "No, I don't want to have a calm conversation." Anyway, she talks over me to say how unfair it is that I would treat her dog like that, and I ask again if she would like to have a calm conversation. She talks over me to tell me how much anxiety pills are. Would you like to have a calm conversation? She talks over me again to tell me that her poor dog she leaves at home 8 hours a day has to wear a shock collar because of me. I decided we were not having a calm conversation, so I said, "Listen here, you piece of work. You started this. All I wanted is to live in peace." I take a step into my apartment and she steps towards me as if she is entering. I'm pretty sure I literally hit her with the door when I slammed it in her face. All I know for sure is something stopped her in the middle of screaming the word "a-hole" at me. I come back to my computer and see that the quiz timed out while I was arguing with the neighbor. I failed to submit it and got a 0. Screw her. It is now Friday night and I am pissed, so I start the most meticulous backpedaling. First I make a complaint about her interrupting my homework late at night to yell at me, and next I move on to texts from my wife. The neighbors had a habit of slamming the door, which I texted my wife about. I checked the time signature on the texts, find the reference code for the applicable hallway camera, hoping they slammed the door from the outside, and email a single detailed noise complaint. Next slammed door text was another separate email as a separate noise complaint. I remember once they parked in our spot when we came home from Costco. So I do what any sane, reasonable person would do and check the credit card charge timestamp. Separate email parking complaint, noting the 2 camera codes that can see our parking spot, and damn, I wasted so much time. I print off my original email complaint, highlight the words peaceful resolution and write the words "you screwed up" at the bottom. The next day their dog is barking for an hour, so I record the noise from the bedroom, kitchen and hallway, and while in the hallway I give the security camera a little thumbs up. I must have looked like a lunatic. I do this every day, multiple times per day. I called by law after 10 PM as there is a city law about noise at that time. Turns out by law in my city has no authority within the apartment buildings, however, the bylaw officer let me know the RCMP can issue tickets for noise. So I submit a police complaint and now a police file is open. By the end of the week I had called the non-emergency line of the RCMP twice, had her ticketed once and filed 17 individual complaints to my building manager. And I carried on every day, video recordings, audio recordings, witnesses in the hallway, contractor comes in to fix something on the 3rd floor, him and I get talking and he agrees to smile for the camera while I record the dog barking way off down the hallway. Today I was informed that they have been evicted. And the next one is titled "Mean Lady Hates Everyone, Especially Us. We buy her house after she failed to pay her debt." The house we live in was built at the same time as hers. My parents were often at the construction site and helped if they could. The strange lady was nice to us at the beginning, but that changed soon. This happened around Christmas 2017. We have a neighbor who is very unpopular in our neighborhood. She is well known for harassing people who use the public path at the left side of her house. The path is 1 out of 3 to reach the public playground behind her house. If someone uses the path, she would scream at them that this is her path on her private property, which is wrong. Sometimes she would close the path with a red and white plastic chain and won't let anyone use the path. She would scream at kids on the playground when they were loud at daytime. She always has her shutters almost down so she can stalk the people on the street and stay unseen. If some kid's ball landed in her garden, she would bring it to the kids and destroy it with a knife right in front of them. All kids knew this and would run by her house if they wanted to go on the playground. When the neighbors' kids were playing in the winter outside in the snow, she would call the CPS equivalent in my country and tell them that they were locked outside by their parents as a punishment. If someone walked by her house at night, she would often call the police due to a noise complaint. She was known by everyone in our neighborhood as the witch. But she hated my family in particular. We lived right beside her house. Our houses shared one wall. When me and my sister were young, we would use the swing in our garden or jump on our trampoline. She would regularly file noise complaints and often harass me and my sister when we were alone in our garden. If my parents heard her screaming swear words at us from the 1st floor of her house, they would yell back. If me or my sister walked on the path by her house, she would scream at us. We used the path daily on our way to school. One time when I came home from school, she was in her car with the trunk on the sidewalk. When I walked by the back of her car, she howled the engine and the dark exhaust hit me. Almost every night she would hit the shared wall with something to wake us up. Sometimes she rings on our door and tried to make us go to the other neighbors to complain about small things. We often had lawsuits with her. One time because her trees grew 2 meters over the border, another time because she built a fence by sticking bamboo mats in the dirt and tearing it down the next day and telling the police we destroyed her wooden fence. We won all lawsuits against her because my uncle, he's teaching law school, gave us good advice on how to deal with her and named lawyers he knew were good. She never paid the workers who repaired things at her house and the electrical and water bills. When her old car broke down, she did not pay the car mechanic and never got her car back. She was in debt and had a mortgage on her house. When the foreclosure came, we were at the court and bought her house. She was with us in the courtroom when the auction was and tried to buy her own house, but was not allowed because she could not provide proof that she has enough money. We bought her house where she lived for 20 plus years in front of her. We bought it because my parents were at the construction of her house and knew the workers did a great job at building it. We renovated it when she left, we repainted all rooms, renewed the insulation and put everywhere where no tiles were new wooden floor. My grandparents will be moving in her old house this fall. And you know guys, I was wondering the whole time, where could this story take place? Let me know your guesses in the comments, but I suppose it is probably Russia. And the next one is titled, Neighbor complains about our plants not being HOA approved, we make some new approved improvements. Our community is new and houses are still being built. My neighbor bought a corner lot house, example lot 58, and we have a house lot like lot 57. Corner lots are cheaper because you don't technically have a view of the lake, looks over our lawn. We also have a strict HOA. Both of us have been living here for about 6 months. We planted 2 frangipanis bushes in our lawn, my wife's favorite flower, without the HOA consent. They tend to be ugly most of the year because the leaves fall off, but she wanted them. Our neighbor told us that he did not think that they were allowed by the HOA. I guess he looked our plants up in the rulebook and suddenly threatened that we should not plant bushes that would block his view. We were not having that, and we all know the best way to get your neighbors to like you is to listen to their advice and follow the rules. So we got 20 areca palms and lined our lot with them on both sides. HOA approved the plants and placement. While we were digging the holes, he walked out with a sad look on his face and said this:
I guess we should not have gotten a corner lot if we wanted a view.
We left the back of our yard open to keep our view of the lake, but he was SOL. You complain about our yard, we will follow the rules. Now he has to live in a house without a view and a tiny lot in Florida. I bet his brand new house just devalued $10,000. And guys, unfortunately, we have already reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, I would suggest to check out my endless playlist, which you will now see linked on the screen, which will provide you thousands of hours of my awesome content. In addition, if you still cannot get enough, I would suggest to check out my Patreon at patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where you will not only find exclusive Reddit content, and for $3 a month you will get early access to all my daily videos, and you will be included in the name list at the end of each video. However, please don't feel pressured into giving me money or anything. I am already incredibly grateful that you watch my videos daily. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.